that this is going to be the last board meeting for Director Bagman, and we wanted to thank you for all of the time and attention that you've given to the agency during your tenure here, and we hope that we will have an opportunity to formally recognize you at a future board meeting and also possibly at the holiday party. But just wanted to extend a very heartfelt thank you to you for all that you've given to the agency.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry, and I know you probably gave that notice at the last minute, so we couldn't do anything formal tonight.
I tried.
The next item is I wanted to just make the announcement that as discussed at our prior board meeting, we have released a very comprehensive energy efficiency information packet to the public 2 weeks ago, and we're currently accepting feedback from folks throughout all of our service territory. Becky's here this evening to answer any questions related to that. But I just wanted to let folks know that the packet went out and it really reflected what was discussed in detail at our last board meeting. We didn't want to take up too much time tonight on that item, so that's why we're giving the announcement now, just letting folks know that that's out on the street. If you are aware of any constituents or stakeholder groups that you think would benefit from seeing the packet that might not already be on our list, please let me know and we can make sure that it gets to them. We'll be taking feedback over the next couple of months and refining our program implementation plan for 2016. The next item, and this is getting at Director Sears' request as far as what meetings we have for the remainder of the year. The technical committee meeting has shifted the time of its meeting to accommodate the needs of some of the directors on the committee to 5 p.m. We used to meet at 9 a.m. on the second Monday of the month. We'll now be meeting at 5 p.m. on the second Monday of the month. And what that means is that our next technical committee meeting will be this Monday, next week at 5 p.m. And we'll be having an interesting presentation regarding microgrids. So everyone's welcome, public, even board members that aren't on TechCom are welcome to come. Should be an interesting discussion and shouldn't be too long of a meeting if that helps entice you to come and participate. And then our executive committee meeting is scheduled to occur as usual on Wednesday, December 17th. But the executive committee has also changed the time of the meeting to accommodate some needs of our traveling directors, and we are going forward, we're going to be meeting at 10 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. I think that's going to work better for some of the directors involved. So just make sure that if you're planning to participate in XCOM this month and going forward, you should arrive at 10 a.m. That time will be reflected on the website and on the agenda that gets posted for that meeting. That'll be December 17th. And then the only other meeting or event that we have this year is our traditional holiday potluck party, which is going to be held on December 12th this year, which is a week from Friday. It's at 6 p.m. and it's in the same location as last year, which is the Falkirk Mansion in San Rafael, in downtown San Rafael. We're doing a little bit earlier this year because folks ran into a lot of conflicts last year when we did it a little later in the month. Hope you can make it, and please RSVP to Darlene. Let her know if you are going to be able to attend, and if you're going to be bringing food or beverage, let her know, and then we can fill in any blanks that we have in the menu for the night. And then the last meeting reminder is just to make sure folks are aware we will not be holding a regular board meeting in January. If we did, it would be on New Year's Day, so we decided that would be a nice thing to do to start off the year. We will hold our first meeting of the year in February instead, the first Thursday. And that's it for my report.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There is one more item.
Before we consent calendar, we want to hear from our legal director.
Yes, so I've worked with our chair to streamline the voting process, because since we're so many board members, I see thumbs up, that's great. So just so folks are aware, before the vote is taken on the consent agenda, the chair will ask if there are any abstentions. That's the most frequent one for abstentions because of the board minutes. So if folks are absent from any of the prior meetings, remember to abstain from that sub item, and then the chair will take the vote non-roll call, but just request in favor, opposed, and abstain for each item. And just regular action items, it'll just be in favor, opposed, or abstain. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. All right, so we're going to move on to consent and see if I can follow instructions. Would like to abstain from consent? Seeing none.
Oh, yep.
Pass on the
What
minutes.
else?
On the minutes.
On the minutes.
You're passing on the minutes,
Yeah,
okay.
just the
Anyone else?
minutes, Marcia.
Just the minutes, right.
Same.
Yep, is anyone else passing on the minutes? Could I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Will we approve the consent calendar?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? We have 2 abstentions for the minutes. Great, thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is a very good item, which is our Neglect and Advocacy Award nominations. And Dawn, I turn this over to you.
Yeah, I'm so honored to get to introduce this item, and this is just by way of background. In the summer of 2011, the Charles McGlashan Advocacy Award was created to honor our founding chair, the late Charles McGlashan, and to offer recognition to those who have demonstrated passion, dedication, and leadership to promote MCE, much in the way that Charles advocated for MCE. Before his passing. The Advocacy Award was first awarded to Barbara George of Women's Energy Matters in 2011, the Main Street Moms in 2012, and Leah Dutton of San Anselmo's Quality of Life Commission in 2013. In November of this year, the executive committee of our board voted to nominate and recommend Doria D. Robinson as the 2014 recipient of the Charles F. McGlashan Advocacy Award. And I want to tell you a little bit about Ms. Robinson. She is a third-generation Richmond resident and the executive director of Urban Tilt, a community-based nonprofit organization located in the city of Richmond, founded in 2005. The organization's mission is to help the West Contra Costa community build a more sustainable, healthy, and just food system. During the early stages of MCE's public outreach process in Richmond, Ms. Robinson was instrumental and promoted information about MCE with a high degree of visibility and credibility. It really meant a lot to both our staff team, our board, and our community members to have that level of information being provided and for serving as the conduit of information just had so much value and was greatly appreciated. I want to highlight a couple of actions that Ms. Robinson took to help during the outreach process. Invitations to participate in community events, helping to refine MCE's messaging. That was extremely valuable, helping us know how to frame the message and ensure that it was not just getting to the right folks, but using the right information so that folks were getting to know what they needed to know, not something that wasn't important to them. Participating on Richmond's Community Leader Advisory Group, the CLAG that we put together. You showed up at those meetings, provided a lot of great input, and also gave a lot of great ideas in those meetings that really helped us strategically reach out to the folks that needed and wanted to hear information in the city of Richmond. You also graciously volunteered to appear in MCE's advertisements. As we can see on the screen behind me, every time I give a presentation now, this is the first slide that pops up, and it warms my heart. I think many other folks, in fact, we were in Commissioner Peterman's office a couple of months ago, and of course pulled out our usual slide deck, and she's like, "Is that Doria?" Having a famous person on our slide deck. And I should mention that you not only offered to be in these advertisements, but you also brought along your mother and daughter to be in the advertisement as well. We really appreciate that. Ms. Robinson continues to offer thoughtful, constructive feedback and community outreach and support for MCE even today. And as evidence of Ms. Robinson's compelling advocacy, the city of Richmond now has more deep green customers than any other city in MCE's jurisdiction. So with that, we'd like to bring you up and present you with an award.
And before we do that, I think we should probably vote on the award.
Okay.
Yes. It would be very hard to say no, I think, at this point. It should be formal. So could I have a motion? Yep.
Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah.
I would like to nominate Doria for the award.
Super. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any, no opposition or abstentions. We're not even calling for that. Congratulations. Yeah.
Okay, if we stand over here, we can take a picture.
Actually, right up in the podium is good.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you this.
So this is a plaque that lives in the McGlashan room. Or actually, it's in our big conference room right now. And every time we add a new awardee, the name gets added. So you can see we've added Ms. Robinson here. Yeah, we were hoping for a good outcome there. I guess we could have changed. Let's take a picture. Tom, do you want to be in the picture?
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom, you should come be in the picture too.
Yes.
Hey, Tom.
What? Oh, okay.
Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
This is for you to take home as well. So here we go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate the award. I really feel like the award really needs to go to all of you. It is such an incredible honor to actually be able to have such a program in Richmond. Recently, we had a little sound off on a Facebook group where we were just commenting on the MCE, and people started to ring out of who was deep green and how it made them feel. And they're like, "Oh, I'm deep green, and it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. It was like nothing, and I haven't seen the difference." And it was just like this moment where you realize that you can actually make pretty profound change, and people want it, and they're excited about it. So I just really wanted to thank you all for your work, continuing to roll this out in all these different communities, and it's really good not to have to be on the front lines of every moment of change, and just to be able to be a cheerleader. So thank you.
Thanks very much. And just on behalf of our board, Ms. Robinson, many of us have not met you before, and it's a pleasure to be able to meet you. We've heard so many great things about all the work that you did in Richmond, and we couldn't be prouder of how well everything is going in Richmond. And you're not off the hook. We're going to keep you busy in the future. Don't get too comfortable. All right. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so next item on our agenda is item number 6, which is our monthly budget report. John.
Are we doing this one?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So in past months, this item's actually been on consent. And there's been some discussion, and there was discussion at the last XCOM meeting about maybe paying a little bit closer attention to the financials publicly. And so the committee decided to set this as a separate agenda item. So I don't have a long presentation. I'll summarize briefly what you have. It's really more of an opportunity to ask some questions and get those addressed. So the budget report here is for the fiscal year to date. So that's April through the end of October. So we're 7 months through the fiscal year. And the financial results are tracking really remarkably well with the budgetary, the budgets that have been set and the budgetary projections. The gross revenues and power supply expenses, which are really the main elements of the budget, are slightly under budget. They've come in slightly under budget, but it's within about a 2% variance range. So that's when you consider everything that goes into the projections and weather variables and unpredictable elements that impact the numbers, that's really quite close. The one thing to note is October is the last month of the summer season for this fiscal year. So what you'll see is the net surplus that's generated by the program tends to peak at this time, and then we move into winter rates starting in November through the end of the fiscal year, and then that net surplus actually starts to get eat up a little bit. So it's just something that you'll see in subsequent months, that the net surplus figure should decline and wind up pretty close, I think, ultimately to where to what was budgeted. So with that, that's the high-level summary. If there are any questions, please let me know. Yes, sir.
President John, the 2% unfavorable variance in revenue, is that attributable to fewer customers than we forecast, or is it just less electrical use per customer than we
Yes,
forecast.
it's the latter. The customer count has actually been increasing, which is fantastic. The customer base has been very stable, and what is below projections is the actual energy usage of the customers. And there is natural variability in that, as you can imagine. Yes.
Yeah, John, if revenues are behind by 1.3 million, but the cost of energy is like 87% of our budget. And so you would expect that to be something like 1.3 million behind, but instead it's 570,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a $500,000 difference. Is that just in how that expense is recognized, or why is it not matching up with the?
Yeah, right. So it's not a one-for-one. They're both highly dependent on the sales figure, the energy sales,
Sure.
right? But it's not a one-for-one because some of the power supply expense is going to be impacted by prevailing market prices at any point in time. Most of the power supply is under a fixed price contract, but there is a relatively small portion that is subject to variable pricing in the market. So that'll influence the power supply cost.
Are we expected to even out over the year? Or?
Yeah, and we do. And also the other main, one of the main causes of the variance in the power supply number are when renewable power deliveries are actually invoiced. They tend to be a little bit lumpy and seasonal. And so actually in October, we wound up getting a whole bunch of transfers. And so those should tend to kind of even out over the year.
Any other questions for John? Anyone from the public have a question on the budget report? So John, on a sort of mundane note, I thank you for this report, and I think the staff report was very helpful in breaking out the short summaries for the different parts of the budget, the operating budget, the energy efficiency program budget, and the local development renewable energy budget. These are really helpful snapshots, at least for me, I think, in getting that picture. So I think this is very helpful. Appreciate your doing this. So this is not an action item, just a discussion. If we have any further discussion on the budget, seeing none, we will move on. And so our next item, and this is kind of a nice segue from our great experience in Richmond, moving on to item 7, which is considering a resolution approving the city of El Cerrito as an MCE member. So yeah, exciting. Dawn, are you going to kick this off? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to kick this off, and then I actually have a presentation as well that is going to be going over the membership analysis that was conducted for the city of El Cerrito. So just kind of as a refresher, it was in July of this year that we received a formal request from the city of El Cerrito expressing interest in MCE membership. After we received this letter, your board authorized completion of a quantitative membership analysis to determine if the projected environmental benefits and reductions in GHG emissions, as well as rate and financial impacts, would be achieved with the addition of this new community to our service territory. That analysis was completed in early October, and the projected impacts are going to be provided by John in this slide deck presentation that we have here. And then the action would be to move forward and take care of some of the logistical elements. But I'll turn it over to John to run through the membership analysis and the results.
It might be easier from over here so I can see the screen. So thank you for that introduction, and you've seen several of these so far, so if it's okay with the board, I'll kind of skip through some of the slides. And so just to kind of set the stage for the existing MCE customer base, and this will be with the expansions into Napa in February and the city of San Pablo in May, we expect we'll have about 145,000 customers. So just kind of keep that number in mind as we talk about the potential expansion into El Cerrito. I think Dawn mostly covered the history here, but the city of El Cerrito has about almost 12,000 electric customers that would potentially be offered service. And as you can see, the majority of the customers and the majority of the electric energy is really in the residential sector. We're projecting that there's the potential of about 80,000 megawatt hours of additional energy sales. That's the energy consumption in the city. One thing to note about the customer base here that is the residential usage per account is relatively low at about 351 kilowatt hours per month. That, if you compare to the current customer base, it's quite a bit higher. It's about 930 kilowatt hours per month. So a lot of residential, relatively low users, I think you can summarize that way. When we do these quantitative analyses, the purpose really is to look at what would be the financial impacts to MCE's ratepayers, in effect, of adding these additional customers, and then also what would be the impacts in terms of use of renewable energy in the state, and also the impacts on greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So those are the three quantitative metrics that we look at.
John, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Could you go back to the customer base chart? My eye went to the street lighting classification. Is that customer bases that we have noted in our other jurisdictions as well? I don't remember talking about, but maybe that's on mine.
Yeah, we do serve all the street lights. Most of them are, of course, municipal accounts.
Right. Does it tend to be the same ratio, of fairly modest, obviously, here? More significant than large commercial and industrial, perhaps not surprisingly.
Yeah, in terms of, so the number of accounts, is that what you're looking at? Yeah. Yeah, streetlights tend to be a lot of very small use accounts. Sometimes it's just a couple of lights that has a separate account designation. So it's kind of a unique in use.
Yeah.
And we actually, of course, have rates designed specifically for streetlight use. In recognition of the fact that it's all nighttime usage. Right. So the rate that we offer streetlights is relatively low because it reflects the fact that it's off. So we've got all kinds of
I hadn't really
streetlights.
thought about our street lighting accounts before, so.
Yeah, streetlights, and the other one that you may not think about is our traffic control lights. So those are also served by MCE. And those are nice because they're always on. They're nice in the sense of we just covered the financial report, so
just from a revenue perspective.
It's like that's a different load profile. It's either red, yellow, or green. So we can predict that one pretty well.
Thanks, John.
The specifics of the load profile are not particularly interesting. It's fairly typical of what we see with the current customer base. In regards to the financial analysis or the rate impact, I think this is kind of the meat of the analysis here. So we've made the assumption that these customers, if the board approves the application, that the customers would begin service at the start of the fiscal year next year. And at current rates, the revenue that would be generated, the incremental revenue, would be a little under $4.8 million per year. And then you can see the cost that we're estimating would be incurred in serving those customers. Most of that is power supply, and then we also have some other variable costs related to billing and other sort of per customer type costs. So total costs are estimated about 3.7, meaning there is a projected surplus of a little over $1 million per year by bringing these customers in. So what can you do with that surplus? Well, one of the things obviously you can do with that is use that to reduce rates. You can pay a portion of MCE's fixed costs with that surplus, thereby lowering rates for everybody. If we did that, that would be about a 1% rate reduction relative to what MCE's rates would be absent the expansion or the addition of these customers. So that is the meat of it there. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those. I think one thing, I get this question usually when I make this presentation is, these always look positive. Is that always going to be the case? And it's just something to keep in mind that we do these studies for a reason, and the reason is that depending on where market prices are at any point in time, it can be beneficial to add customers, or it actually, it could be a scenario where if market prices were high, it could be a detriment, at least in the short term, to add customers, because the cost of buying the power would be higher than the current rate that you're charging the customer. So there, in effect, be negative surpluses generated or negative margins. We haven't seen that. We've been doing these, this year for the most part, and market prices have been pretty low. So all of the expansion analyses that we've looked at have been positive, and this one is no exception. But it's not, I don't want everybody to kind of lock into their heads that it's in every case going to be beneficial to add customers.
Questions for John? Yes. Sure.
John, with respect to the $1 million rate benefit, will that be put generally back into lowering the rates for everybody in MCE? I thought I heard in your presentation you said if it was, and I'm not sure if I misheard you or not.
Right, and ultimately that's a board decision when we get to setting the budget and rates. I think that would be the natural expectation, but that's really a board decision.
Yep.
No questions? No. So the action you're asking us to take tonight is contingent on El Cerrito taking a couple of actions, correct?
That's correct.
So, yeah. So there are three things that you'd like us to do. One is approve the resolution approving the City of El Cerrito as a member of Marin Clean Energy. The second is to approve an Amendment 9 to the MCE Joint Powers Authority Agreement. And the third item is submittal of Amendment 9 to MCE Revised Implementation Plan and Statement of Intent, the California PUC. So I'm going to take us as approving voting on all three of those items together, unless our council would like us to separate them. Okay, great. So, yeah.
I move the item. All three.
All three?
Yep.
Okay, we got a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Super. Thank you very much, John. And so what is our timing then on El Cerrito going forward?
So the City of El Cerrito will be bringing to their council on December 16th the first reading of their ordinance to join MCE. So the first reading is scheduled for December 16th, and then the second reading is scheduled for January 5th. That would complete the action on their side. Of course, their next step would then be to designate a board member, and we would need to file the implementation plan revision with the CPUC and wait for that to become certified before we could add a board member from the State of El Cerrito. I anticipate that could happen around the March timeframe. We do expect to do the enrollment in El Cerrito in concert with the enrollments we'll be doing in San Pablo and Benicia. We achieved some administrative consolidation when we're able to do enrollments in multiple places during the same month. So we think that's going to be a good approach, particularly because El Cerrito and San Pablo are very close together, very close to Richmond, and it will coincide with some outreach that we're going to be doing in Richmond during that same time frame.
Super. And will we be hearing more about that in our communications update tonight or in a future board meeting?
Yeah, tonight we're mainly going to be focusing on the Napa enrollment because that's what's underway now. That's where most of our focus is, although we are doing some early groundwork, getting ads teed up for the Richmond area, El Cerrito, and San Pablo. But most of the focus right now is really targeting Napa, and that's what we'll be talking about in the communications report tonight.
Super. Great, thank you. All right. So let's move on to item A, which is discussion and action on MCE staff positions. So Dawn, is this your or Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie Gar's going to introduce this item. She handles our human resources for those of you that haven't met her.
You actually have two items, two documents, the regular board packet and then a supplemental packet that was sent out. What this reflects is the growth in our service offerings and our engagement in regulatory and legislative activities, energy efficiency, and internal procurement activities. We've realized that we have a need for new and or higher level positions within the organization. So the first packet has senior regulatory analyst, which will be an open recruitment. The job description for regulatory associate, which will be an internal promotion. The power supplies contract manager, which will be an open recruitment. Energy efficiency program specialist tier 2. We currently have tier 1. This is a higher level of that, which will also be an internal promotion. And then clerk, which is, as you know, an internal position, and what is reflected here is an increase in salary due to the additional work with the board and committees, as well as providing assistance as an executive assistance to Dawn as the executive officer. The second is a job description for regulatory counsel and creating also 2 tiers within that job description. And the purpose of this is to be able to transition an extra hire to a regular hire position, and again having more support on for the regulatory team. So, do you have questions or any more information about these items?
Board, I was curious about just going through. I'm looking at the power supply contracts manager. Some of these, are there salary ranges indicated for all of these positions? I wasn't.
The salary ranges are listed, yes.
Individually for each. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
The recommendation section for each item.
Okay.
You'll see it there.
And that, okay, it's not there and not in the job description.
That's correct. And the way we structure, when we have staff positions coming to the board, the structure of the staff report is slightly different, and we think it makes it easier to follow. We include a recommendation for each position that includes the proposed salary range in that recommendation.
Okay, super, thank you. And those salary ranges are based on what? Was there an updated salary assessment for the survey that was done? Or just a little more info on that would be
based
helpful.
on internal steps or growth within a job class series. So the only one that, or they're compared to a similarly situated position already in the organization. For example, the power supply contracts manager, it's a new position, there weren't any or enough comparables externally, so we did an internal comparison and set it internally.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank you for including in the packet the analysis of the staff expenses as part of the annual budget. I don't know if people noticed that. It's on an unnumbered page that I can't tell on my iPad. And then the use of funds for staff expenses, that's helpful. Any questions from the board about these positions? Yeah, Tom?
Where do these salary ranges show up? I see the ones for the first. Oh, they're it's in the summary. Right, yeah, okay.
It might also be helpful to mention that this item came to the executive committee a few weeks ago and was recommended for consideration here for the full board.
Yes, please. And I'm sort of new, but it seems like a lot to have all of a sudden a need for 4 new positions. Is this something that's been a problem for a long time? I would have expected maybe not 1 position or maybe 2, and here we have 4 all at once.
Yeah, well, actually, the changes for 2 new positions. 2 of these are result in an open recruitment. That's item A, the senior regulatory analyst, and then item C, the power supply contracts manager. And I can talk about what the new individual would be doing for those two positions, but first I should clarify that all of the others are for existing staff that we already have on our team whose role has evolved, or there's a need for some additional services to be provided by that staff employee.
And since almost all of these are regulatory and that's my team, I'm happy to also address that. So just so folks know, we've been having a pretty heavy lift on the regulatory team in particular as it relates to energy efficiency. And so what we're looking to do, obviously your board has been reviewing the development of our 2016 and beyond portfolio that we want to offer, which is a much more extensive offering. And we also want to look at offering low-income programs. And each of those, in order to be able to tap into that at the commission, it's going to require a much deeper dive for specific individuals, more than my team can handle. And so soon we hope to be launching one opening that could be filled by several types of people. You know, the person could be an attorney or they could be an analyst. But the idea is, how do we find the best possible person with the best energy efficiency expertise who can serve that regulatory role so that we can bring in additional energy efficiency funds to serve more MCE customers. So that's the driving force behind basically all of the regulatory ones. Well, there's a couple of steps up in there for existing staff who have been in their positions for several years.
But Director Robbins, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, this agency for so long was really run on a shoestring of people, very leanly staffed, and I think over the course of the last year and a half, we have been expanding. But I continue to think that our perspective on expansion is very good, and the energy efficiency side of it is a good example, that we've been involved in that area and had staff working in that area and have realized the different kinds of needs that we have for additional staff. And so I think we've been prudent in not deciding to add on staff until we really had a very clear sense of what our needs are. So these changes in positions make sense to me. But, other comments from the Commission? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve these staff positions as proposed. Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? It's approved. Thank you. All right, communications update.
Great. Good evening. Do we have a? Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much. As Dawn mentioned earlier, today the update I'm going to give you is really going to focus on Napa. But just as a reminder, at the last board meeting, Alex gave a presentation to give you a broader update about all the marketing and advertising and community outreach that we're doing in our entire service area. So we do still have an ad campaign running in Marin County right now, a print ad campaign in the Marin IJ and the Pacific Sun, online digital advertisements, as well as advertisements on the backs of whistle stop buses. And we'll be starting a Richmond-based campaign early next month, and that's also going to be an online digital campaign. We've purchased a couple of billboards as well, and we'll also be running bus stops in Richmond. And then that will blend and sort of bleed into the ad campaign that's going to start in San Pablo in late January, early February. So that's a little bit more of a holistic approach of the things that we're doing. But today I wanted to give you an update of what's going on in Napa, because that's what we're spending the majority of our time working on. As you all know, the first and second enrollment notices were mailed out to all customers in unincorporated Napa County last month, and the third notice is going to be mailed out next week. The first two notices were in the form of letters and sealed envelopes, and the notice that's going out next week is actually going to be a trifold brochure, so it's a slightly different format. Those notices are all in English and Spanish. Our fourth and fifth opt-out notices will be delivered to customers in February and March if they haven't chosen to opt out. So those will be delivered to them after they are enrolled with service. And again, service with MCE for Napa customers starts in February next year. Because we've been sending these notices out and because we're doing an ad campaign in Napa right now, we're getting a lot more interaction with Napa residents and businesses, so that's really exciting. We are providing some staffing support at the Napa County offices. After the first enrollment notice was mailed out, there were a couple of customer walk-ins and they received some phone calls. And so members of the public affairs team have been taking turns going up to the county offices and providing staffing support, interacting with staff, providing information to them if they have any questions about it, and then just being able to be present in case there are any additional walk-ins or public inquiries. We've sort of stepped back a little bit on the staffing, and going forward, now that those first notices have gone out and we've made our first initial splash, we'll only be providing staff in the Napa County offices on the weeks when those notices are going to land. So next week we'll have staff there, and then again we'll have staff in February and March when additional mailers go out. And of course, if for some reason there's a spike, we can send staff again, and we're happy to provide assistance in those offices. Since the first notices went out, our call center has been pretty busy. We've had a big uptick in calls, about 3.5 times more than what we usually see the first week that first opt-out notice went out. And 87% of the calls were from unincorporated Napa County residents and businesses. So as of yesterday, we've had 85 deep green enrollments from Napa, which is really great. We're super happy to see that. Really appreciate the support, and it's always nice to hear the enthusiasm for the 100% renewable energy option. And we've had about 570 opt-outs, and that represents about 3.5% of the entire customer base that's in Napa. Any questions on this information?
Is the 3.5% normal? Is that what you've seen on from other areas?
It's representative of what we saw in the city of Richmond when we did their enrollment.
Other questions?
And where do we end up in the city of Richmond in terms of opt-outs?
I think it's at about 15%. All right, so I wanted to give you guys a little snapshot of what the third enrollment notices look like. I didn't have hard copies to distribute to you yet because they're going out next week, but this is a snapshot of what one of the interior pages looks like. It shows quite clearly the 3 choices that customers have for their energy supply, and we are highlighting a community meeting that we'll be hosting in late January. So that's going out to all 15,000 or so customers in Napa, so we're hoping to have a good turnout to that meeting where people can learn more information. We also had a page that had a lot of graphics on it that were showing how we partner with PG&E, what the typical annual savings are for customers, whether they're residential, commercial, agricultural, and what they can expect their first bill to look like if they decide to choose MCE service. We've got several community events that we're participating in Napa, so this is a list here. We're going to be speaking with several Rotary clubs. We've gone to a few different community events already. We've got the Farmers Market and Rootstock, which is a really big event in Napa, and it was really successful. We had dozens of people come up to our booth and speak to us, and people had lots of questions and generally seemed excited about the opportunity to choose MCE. So we're looking forward to continuing to get more of these on our list so that we can have one-on-one, face-to-face interactions with people. And then at the last meeting, I know Alex showed you some of the advertisements that we have running in Marin and Richmond. We'll have those print, we actually already are having those print advertisements run in Napa as well. One of their major newspapers is the Napa Valley Register. We've got advertisements running in that, a couple of billboards, and then online digital ads. There was a news story in the Napa Valley Register a couple of weeks ago that was very positive from one of their journalists, so that was good to see. And there's also been several community newsletters that have been sent out with information about MCE. So Sustainable Napa County, the Napa County Farm Bureau, the Napa chapter of the Sierra Club, Napa Valley Vintners, Napa Valley Grape Growers, and some of the county supervisors have also sent out informational emails to their distribution lists. So that is sort of a high-level overview of what's going on with Napa. And next steps for our team, again, are really focusing on San Pablo and Benicia outreach, and then depending on the outcome with El Cerrito, also developing plans for those communities. You might remember the community outreach plan that we brought that was pretty detailed for the County of Napa. We would be creating a plan just like that, but oriented to any other new community that will be joining. So Benicia and San Pablo will have plans like that that we'll present to you for feedback. And if El Cerrito joins, we'll create one for El Cerrito as well.
And Jamie, when do you anticipate bringing those plans to us?
We are finalizing the San Pablo plan this month. So, and I don't think there's a board
I guess
meeting in
February would be
January.
the earliest time we could in any event. So.
What was that?
February would be the earliest that you could.
Yeah,
in any
so
event.
let's see, I think February would be the earliest time that I would come to a board meeting, but it's likely that we will want to bring something to the executive committee for review and consideration.
Super. Great. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions? Yeah.
Just a quick question on the advertising campaign within Marin. What's the principal objective of that level of intensity in the media campaign?
Well, so the campaign actually has a common theme in all of our different service areas, including Napa and what we will be doing in San Pablo and Richmond. And it's sort of plays off the phrase, "We have the power." You can actually hand these out to you guys if you want. They're informational flyers that we're handing out in Napa, but it has an example of the ad on the front page. But the ad is generally, the advertising campaign is really generally to bring brand awareness and support of MCE and understanding and keeping, Marin Clean Energy in the top of people's minds, in the forefront of their minds as opportunities and options for their power supply. We do have more common themes that are running and messages, more specific messages that are appearing in each of those ads. And so there, we have the power to reduce our utility We have the power to reduce our utility bills. We have the power to choose cleaner energy. We have the power to choose a local, not-for-profit electricity provider. And we have the power to help MCE create local solar and new jobs. And so those are the 4 messages that are being distributed, and there's a little bit more detail on some of the print ads, which is similar to that right there for each of those messages.
I guess my question was more going at the fact that Marin is an established market for us, as opposed to the other markets where we're pursuing some of these advertising priorities. And I'm just wondering whether there's a distinction to be made in terms of the level of effort and energy we put into marketing to an existing customer base. Is it focused to prevent erosion of that base? Is it to increase the utilization of the Deep Green program? What are we trying to really accomplish? I understand what we're trying to accomplish in the new markets, but in the established market, that's a little less clear.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say that even in Marin, educating people about Marin Clean Energy is still really important. For example, when people opt out, and people still do opt out despite the fact that we have more people signing up right now than are opting out, which is why our customer base is growing. The number 2 reason that people opt out, so this includes Marin and Richmond, our existing service area, is due to rate concerns. And so we want people to know that our rates are lower. So that's one of the main messages in our ad campaign, is that we're able to offer lower rates and competitive and stable rates for our customers. So it helps with customer retention. As an example, I think a lot of the customers, the thing about our agency is that we are continuing to take on these new programs, and things change, like all of the local solar projects that are going to be developed. And people aren't going to know about that unless we tell them and put it out there in the community. And I think it's really important to let them know about it because it reflects our values, and those are the values of our community.
Question here.
Yeah.
Can you legally do something like do a mail campaign to individual opt-outers and say, if you had enrolled in Marin Clean Energy, or if you had not opted out, you would have saved approximately $36, you would have saved X amount of greenhouse gas, give yourself a Christmas present.
For next year.
Think again, enroll before the end of the year or something like, can you do that?
Yes, we could. And we do, you know, when we're doing outreach that's more targeted other than just, you know, digital advertising or advertising in newspapers, we are able to look at our entire customer list, and we are able to see which customers opted out and why they opted out. And our public affairs team and the account managers within that team and our community affairs coordinators, we do create targeted plans where we reach out directly to those customers and provide them cost comparisons, exactly like what you're talking about, or information about the greenhouse gas reductions.
Jamie, is also part of your objective with respect to the local Marin specific advertising campaign to increase and solidify a market presence
Absolutely.
of MCE and consolidate our identity and differentiate us from PG&E?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I would say that I think that we will be advertising in all of our service areas as long as we're serving customers. Because we do, you know, we want to be a part of the community and we want to have relationships with our customers, and exactly what you said.
And since nobody looks at their bill, they're not going to get the information that way.
I do think it makes a lot of sense what you said earlier, though, Jamie, is that there have been so many changes in our business in the last couple of years, and with the energy efficiency programs coming on board and more local projects coming online, there's good reason to be reaching out to customers in all of our jurisdictions to remind people and inform them of the new things that we're doing. So, and I think here, you know, as the board talked over the course of the last year or so, we've had some holdover sentiment and misinformation from back years ago when the agency first got started that burbles up every now and again. So it doesn't hurt to be out having the conversation. Other questions, comments? We have one member of the public who would like to comment. Come on up. It'd be great if you go up to the podium. Or just yell from there. It's okay.
It's a quick question. Just on the 87% of calls that have been coming in to Napa, is there any kind of breakdown or categorization of what's the main subject matter of the calls? Is there any?
The majority of people who call are calling with a request to opt out.
Or to sign up for Deep Green.
Or to sign up for, I mean, yeah. So they're calling for a variety of reasons, but if you were going to break it down by percentage, I would say that that is the majority of the callers. So to request a change in service, so to opt out, to sign up for Deep Green, or, you know, maybe they have general questions about the program.
Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you, Jamie. Great. Keep up the good work. Same team as in Richmond is up in Napa now?
Yes,
excellent.
with one more.
With one more?
Yes, Allison Kirk.
That's right, thank you. Super, great, good job. All right, regulatory and legislative update.
Great,
yes.
Thank you so much. I actually have no slides today, I'll spare you that. And actually, no regulatory today, I'll also spare you that. I know, don't cry. We're going to talk just a little bit on the legislative front. I just wanted to let folks know that we have been heading up to Sacramento a little bit already. We've been having, we tried to have update meeting up in Sacramento. It is the job creation that we've achieved for MCE, all the projects that we've been building, what we've been undertaking in the energy efficiency realm, and also the amount of renewables that we are building and developing in state. So, I mean, just as folks know, we have over $500 million committed to renewable development in the state of California. So that is meaningful. And so we've been having some really positive conversations up there, and the session has begun. So in your board package, you'll see I've noted a couple of things that we've heard about rumblings of legislation coming up. One is the governor's Carbon 2030 plan. And another one is a consumer advocacy bill that's going to build in some additional protections for ratepayers, and also put certain parameters around what the California Public Utilities Commission has been doing. This really is in response to the significant ex parte violations of PG&E related to PG&E's gas transmission case and the fallout that we discussed a couple of months ago. So since this staff report was issued, actually there have been no fewer than 4 bills addressing carbon in the state. We're still waiting on the governor's plan, but we're monitoring all of those bills. And we are still waiting for the consumer advocacy bill to crop up. So we expect to see that pretty soon. One component, though, is your board has approved legislative policy guidelines for how we participate in Sacramento. And one thing missing from those guidelines relate to advocating on behalf of community choice segregation customers. And with this bill that's going to be coming up that's going to relate to consumer protections and also just how the Public Utilities Commission is going to function, those are going to have significant impacts on CCA customers. And so what we're requesting in this staff report is an addition to the already existing legislative guidelines for staff to follow. And that specifically relates to that advocacy that benefits CCA customers and just taking additional actions on legislation that has rate impacts. So there's going to be, it looks like there might be additional non-bypassable charges. We can fight against those, or rate benefits, we can fight for those. And then also where there are potential changes to regulatory and legislative processes, then we would be able to be involved with that. And so that is our request, to make that clarification for our activities up in Sacramento. And that is our request. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
Question. What consequences flow from PG&E's failure to comply with ex parte rules?
Yes, there was a recent decision that came down that fined PG&E, and also they are required to make, ironically, additional ex parte reports. But more reporting than is otherwise required of other parties.
But if the Public Utilities Commission made a decision that was based upon, or issued a rule that was based upon an ex parte communication, doesn't it undermine that? In other words, my understanding is the purpose of the ex parte notices were to provide sort of open and obvious understanding of what was discussed and when and why.
That's right.
If they failed to do this, and so there were communications that were behind closed doors, and subsequent to these failures, the Public Utilities Commission issued rulings or made decisions.
That's right.
Doesn't that undermine those rulings or decisions?
Yes, and that's exactly right.
So can we revisit those?
Yes, and several parties are already revisiting those. And so, for example, one area relates to what's called a risk-reward incentive mechanism. It's basically the payout that investor-owned utilities receive for, I would say, performing well in their energy efficiency portfolios, but actually they receive bonuses even if they don't perform well on their energy efficiency portfolios. And there was a bonus paid to PG&E that's now under question. So the Office of Ratepayer Advocates, ORA, and the Utility Reform Network, TURN, which is a consumer advocacy group, those two entities have filed a petition for modification on that decision to basically take back those funds. And if you remember to several board meetings ago when I had attached an internal PG&E email that was disclosed in the Public Records Act, it was discussing quid pro quo with PV's office, President PV's office, the President of the California Public Utilities Commission, saying, if you support X, then we'll give you additional incentives. So basically, if you support, this greenhouse gas reduction plan, then we'll give you these energy efficiency incentive dollars, shareholder funds, bonuses from our customers' pockets. So, so those are being called into question, and so there is additional follow-up. And as you remember, there were several folks, higher up executives at PG&E and the regulatory affairs that were fired And there was some small fallout at the commission as well.
Are there actions that have affected community choice aggregation that fall within the scope of quid pro quo activities, or is that mostly San Bruno fire damage control?
I think the answer is that we don't know. So
Do you have a sense though?
Yeah, so what we have a sense of from the emails that were released pursuant to sort of this earlier process leading up to this decision, there were very clear and consistent conversations at all levels within PG&E and externally with decision makers about CCA. But it's hard to say what of our fairly challenging regulatory experience has been attributable to those type of violations, backdoor communications, things like that. So I don't think that answer is knowable. Although there may end up being more emails released, and so that internal PG&E emails, and so that may result in additional information.
Is it overburdensome or overwhelming to try to get a handle on the emails already released about where and when Marin Clean Energy or any CCAs are mentioned in there? Is there there hundreds of thousands of them, or is there a much smaller body?
PG&E has been in charge of the number of emails that have been released, so it's about 5. I'm being exactly.
There's only 5 released?
Is that
So there's about 65,000 that PG&E has released to their private external counsel for review, but nobody else has seen that except for PG&E and their private external counsel. And MCE has written a letter to the Public Utilities Commission asking them to release all of the 65,000 emails, so we can ascertain whether or not CCA was discussed or addressed in any of these ex parte conversations.
Okay, I missed that. So there's more coming, or we don't know?
No, we don't know, but we've asked for them.
Do we have a right to this? Can we insist on it?
No. So just basically the way the process has played out is there's a gas transmission proceeding where that San Bruno was actively involved in, and they have very effective counsel working on this, and they've been pressing very hard to have certain documents released and been doing a lot of document requests of PG&E and the CPUC. As a result of that, PG&E admitted that it had made certain ex parte violations and attached a couple of emails. And so, I mean, the entirety of the documents are, like I said, very, very few. We're talking like fewer than 10. And what they indicated in this letter indicating wrongdoing is that there were over 65,000 emails that were currently under review for potential violations. And so in the Office of Ratepayer Advocates and TURN, the Utility Reform Network, has asked for release of those emails. We have supported that request. We've separately sent a letter stating that those emails should be released. And just so folks are aware, we're a public agency subject to Public Records Act requests. So PG&E is not, and this is sort of the consequence of that. So this is...
the CPUC is. They are.
The CPUC is.
CPUC is.
Yes. But for example, one of the ones that made reference to CCA was actually PG&E had met with President Peavy at his house. This representative from PG&E had a couple of nice bottles of Pinot, according to this email. After that meeting, this internal PG&E person drafted a very long email discussing all of the different proceedings that PG&E was involved in that had been discussed with the president of the commission, and sent that to his boss.
Nice.
And that is, so for example, you wouldn't find that in a Public Records Act at the commission.
Not if they could help it.
Not if they could. And so the request to be able to participate in this type of legislation, some of the core parts of that legislation are, we've been in conversation with these different groups that are looking at doing legislation, and they would like to look more closely at ex parte rules and things like that. So those really do have an impact on MCE and on customers. So that's why we're making this request to just revise our legislative guidelines. Yes.
Just to, so I clearly understand. I mean, I understand what PG&E is doing, why they're doing it. Are these public record act requests? They are going to the commission though. I mean,
So,
is the commission being requested to disclose documents?
The commission has been requested to disclose documents. We haven't made any, obviously, public records out requests in that regard. There are separate Department of Justice and Attorney General proceedings that are happening right now, and I think that is causing additional layers of complexity in having additional emails released at this point in time. That's my speculation.
But that's not being explicitly stated by the commission as a reason for not disclosing documents that have been requested? I guess I'm confused a little bit.
I am too. No, I think the full extent of it, most of the brunt of the requests have been directed at PG&E, and PG&E is under no obligation to release that information. So I don't know the status of any requests directed at the CPUC, but I would
Beth,
think
let me ask you another question. You said that the requests for emails to PG&E or their disclosure of emails occurred as part of a matter that was before the CPUC.
That's correct.
Is there any regulatory matter that we are involved in that would provide an opportunity in the context of that regulatory matter for us to request documents from PG&E, understanding that they're not necessarily under an obligation to produce them, but I'm just wondering if there are other matters that would logically create an opportunity to seek to get emails from PG&E. And I don't know if we're involved in anything that would provide that kind of opportunity.
maybe. And so, for example, in the risk-reward incentive mechanism, the one that we discussed before regarding energy efficiency incentives, an interesting component about that is those incentives are only paid to investor-owned utilities. And we had requested that if we perform well on our energy efficiency programs, we should receive the same. Our ratepayers and or our energy efficiency programs should receive those benefits to basically do more energy efficiency. That request was denied, and to me that calls into question, was that denied just because, or was it denied because the benefits being attributed to certain investor-owned utilities were quid pro quo? So that to me is what's called into question. I think we are going to be supporting certain efforts, so we're going to be responding to ORA and TURN's petition for modification in that risk-reward incentive mechanism case. A lot of these, right now our focus is on reducing charges paid by our ratepayers in a fair and equitable way, and that's the biggest bang for the buck for our customers, and that's what our customers deserve at this point, so that's where we're focusing our efforts.
On the PCIA and CAM charges.
That's exactly right.
Makes a lot of sense. Great. Super. Any other questions, conversations? So what you need from us, Beth, is support for an amendment or an addition to the legislative guidelines, can't remember exactly what we're calling them, to enable you to do advocacy that benefits CCA customers. Is that right? Okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Any opposition? Any abstention? All right. I think we're good. Any board member and staff matters? Staff member matters? I got it right. No? Well, we hope to see everybody at the holiday party. And thank you for a relatively short meeting. We love it. We're adjourned.